The morning light filtered through the hotel suite's sheer curtains, casting a golden glow across the vintage dress hanging on the wardrobe door. Fiona Reeves ran her fingers over the delicate lace her grandmother had worn 60 years ago, restored, stitch by stitch, over the past 3 months. Something borrowed, something old, all in one, her mother Patricia said, appearing beside her with a pearl hairpin. Your grandmother would have loved seeing you in this today. Fiona nodded, trying to ignore the strange hollowness in her chest. Wasn't a bride supposed to feel butterflies? Excitement? Instead, she felt oddly detached, as though watching the preparations from a distance. Her bridesmaids bustled around the suite in matching sage-colored dresses, led by her best friend Olivia, who'd been micromanaging every detail since dawn. The florist just delivered your bouquet, Olivia announced, placing white peonies and eucalyptus on the vanity. And I've already checked. James and the groomsmen are getting ready in the West Wing. At the mention of her fiancé, Fiona checked her phone. No messages. Unusual for James, who typically sent her a good morning text daily, even when they were in the same building. James Whitley, successful investment banker, charming conversationalist, and in 3 hours, her husband? Everything okay? Olivia asked, noticing Fiona's frown. He hasn't texted today, Fiona said, immediately feeling foolish for worrying. Pre-wedding jitters, I guess. By noon, the butterflies had finally arrived, though they felt more like ravens flapping against her ribcage. Something felt wrong. When Thomas, James's brother and best man, arrived looking disheveled and avoiding eye contact, the ravens grew louder. Is James ready? Fiona asked directly. Thomas flinched. He's running late. Last-minute things. The photographer arrived, capturing the final moments of preparation. Fiona stepping into her grandmother's dress, her mother fastening each tiny pearl button along the spine. Olivia carefully securing the veil with trembling hands. Through the window, Fiona watched guests arriving at the historic Westbrook Chapel, colleagues from the magazine, where she worked as a photojournalist. James's finance friends in expensive suits, family members from 3 different states. 150 people who'd rearranged their lives to witness their promises dot at 2:45 p.m. 15 minutes before the ceremony, Fiona's phone buzzed. A text from James. Her hands shook as she read it. I can't go through with this. I'm sorry. Laura and I are leaving town. The truth is, it's been over for months. Laura, his colleague, the one he'd assured Fiona was just a friend. Fiona? Olivia's voice seemed to come from underwater. What's wrong? Wordlessly, she handed over the phone. Olivia's gasp brought Patricia rushing over. He's been seeing someone else, Fiona managed, and apparently emptied our joint account this morning. The room exploded into chaos. Olivia cursing, Patricia calling Fiona's father, bridesmaids exchanging horrified glances. What do we tell everyone? Her younger sister Naomi whispered. The question cut through Fiona's shock. 150 people waiting. Thousands spent on flowers, food, venue. Her grandmother's dress, altered to fit her perfectly. I'll tell them, Fiona said, surprising herself with her steady voice. They came for me. They deserve to hear it from me. Standing at the chapel entrance minutes later, Fiona faced her assembled guests. The music had been silenced. The empty chair where James should have stood waited at the altar. There won't be a wedding today, she announced, her journalists. Training keeping her voice clear, despite the tremor in her hands. But please stay for the reception. No sense in wasting good champagne. Later, they would call it bravery. In that moment, standing in her grandmother's dress, before a room of pitying eyes, Fiona called it survival. 3 months after the wedding that wasn't, Fiona's apartment had become both sanctuary and prison. Stacks of unanswered sympathy cards, created paper towers on her coffee table. Her camera once an extension of her arm gathered dust on the shelf. "Enough," Olivia declared one rainy Sunday afternoon, barging in with 2 travel mugs of coffee. "You've hibernated long enough." Fiona pulled her blanket tighter. "I'm not ready to face everyone's pity." "No pity," Olivia said, dropping a brochure on Fiona's lap. "Just wilderness. 10 days, no phones, no internet. Just mountains, trees, and people who don't know your story. The Rediscover Yourself Wilderness Retreat promised disconnection from technology and reconnection with nature. Under normal circumstances, Fiona would have dismissed it as New Age nonsense. But normal had evaporated the moment she'd read James's text. "I can't afford this," Fiona murmured, glancing at the price. James's betrayal had left her financially, as well as emotionally drained. "Already paid for," Olivia said. "Consider it an investment in getting my best friend back." 2 weeks later, Fiona found herself in Montana's Bitterroot Mountains, surrounded by strangers wearing expressions ranging from eager enthusiasm to thinly veiled skepticism. Their guide, Marcus Delaney, looked more rugged park ranger than spiritual guru, with his weathered face and practical outdoor gear. "This isn't therapy," Marcus announced to the group of 12. "The mountains don't care about your problems. They'll be beautiful whether you're happy or miserable. That's the gift they offer perspective." The first 3 days were physically brutal. Fiona's city muscles screamed in protest as they hiked higher into the wilderness. She developed blisters despite her expensive hiking boots. At night, she lay awake in her tent, haunted by memories of James and the life she'd planned. On the 4th morning, they reached an alpine meadow blanketed with wildflowers, while others took photos with disposable cameras, the only technology. Aloud, Fiona sat apart, watching clouds cast moving shadows across the landscape. Marcus settled beside her, offering jerky from a small pouch. "Most people are looking for answers out here," he said. "But sometimes it's better to find new questions." "What if all my questions are about the past?" Fiona asked. "Then you're hiking backward," he replied simply. "Hard to see where you're going that way." That evening, around the campfire, someone suggested they each share something they'd left behind. Not physical possessions, but heavier burdens, expectations, regrets, identities. When Fiona's turn came, she surprised herself by speaking. "I left behind the person I thought I'd be by now. Wife, eventually mother. Part of a perfect-looking partnership." She poked the fire with a stick, watching sparks rise. "I'm not sure who I am without those plans." "Maybe that's the point," said a silver-haired woman across the fire. To find out, on day 7, they hiked to a remote waterfall. Without overthinking, Fiona stripped to her swimsuit and plunged into the icy pool below. The cold shocked her system, stealing her breath, then returning it anew, sharper and clearer than before. Breaking the surface, laughing and gasping, she caught Marcus watching her with approval. "That," he said, "is someone hiking forward." "Aye." The final day, Fiona's body had hardened, her skin had darkened, and something calcified around her heart had begun to crack. She'd taken exactly 0 photographs, but for the first time in months, her fingers itched for her camera dot as they descended toward civilization. Fiona realized she was returning with something unexpected, not answers or healing, but hunger. Hunger for whatever came next. "We need someone to cover the Riverstone protest," said Bennett, Fiona's editor at Focal Point magazine, sliding a file across his desk. "Indigenous community fighting against a dam project. Environmental impact, cultural preservation right." "Up your alley?" Fiona hesitated. Since returning from the wilderness retreat 2 weeks ago, she'd been easing back into work with safe, unchallenging assignments. Local farmers markets, community theater reviews. This would be 3 weeks on. "Location," Bennett continued. "Immersive coverage. Your specialty, Before ... double quotes before. Everything in her life now existed in relation to that demarcation line. Before James left. Before she stood in a white dress explaining to 150 guests why there wouldn't be a wedding. You don't have to decide immediately, Bennett said, misreading her silence. I'll do it, Fiona said, surprising them both. When do I leave? The Riverstone community welcomed her with cautious hospitality. Elena Ramirez, the fierce, 60-something leader of the preservation movement, showed Fiona to a modest cabin where she'd stay during her assignment. We've had journalists before, Elena said, her dark eyes evaluating Fiona. They come, they take what they need for their stories, they leave. Our struggle becomes entertainment, something for people to read. About over morning coffee. I'm not here to exploit your story, Fiona replied. I'm here to help you tell it. Elena's expression softened slightly. We'll see. Over the following days, Fiona's camera became active again, capturing images of ancient petroglyphs that would be submerged if the dam project proceeded. She photographed elders teaching children traditional fishing techniques in waters slated for destruction. Each evening she showed Elena her day's work, listening to corrections and context. You have a good eye, Elena acknowledged after the first week, but you're still seeing like a visitor. How should I see? Fiona asked. Like someone with something at stake, Elena replied. The next morning, Elena took Fiona to a hidden canyon where generations of her family were buried. This place will be underwater if we lose, she explained. Not just land, history, memory. Fiona lowered her camera. I won't photograph this. Some things shouldn't be documented by outsiders. Elena nodded, approval warming her gaze. Now you're beginning to see. That evening, during the community's weekly gathering, Elena introduced Fiona not as a journalist, but as someone learning to see with her heart as well as her eyes. The simple acceptance cracked something open in Fiona's chest. Later, helping. Wash dishes, Elena asked casually. The ring mark on your finger recent? Fiona glanced down at the pale band where her engagement ring had been. How did you know? You carry it like a fresh wound, Elena said. Loss leaves traces. Somehow, standing in Elena's small kitchen, Fiona found herself telling the story. She'd avoided recounting for months. The text message, the empty savings account, the guests who witnessed her humiliation. When she finished, Elena dried her hands deliberately on a dish towel. Some people are careless with precious things, she said. It speaks to their poverty, not the value of what they discarded. That night, Fiona reviewed her photographs with new eyes. Among hundreds of images, one stopped her breath, Elena standing. At sunset by the river, her face lined with determination and love for the land she defended. It captured something essential about choosing to fight for what matters. Fiona titled it simply, Worth Defending. Part 4. Paper Lanterns, the Preservation. Celebration filled the Riverstone Community Center with music, food, and cautious optimism. After months of protests, legal battles, and Fiona's photo essay in Focal Point going viral, the dam project had been suspended pending further environmental review. Not a victory yet, Elena cautioned as she arranged paper lanterns for the evening ceremony, but a moment worth marking. Fiona adjusted her camera settings, capturing the preparations. Over the past 2 months, she'd extended her stay at Riverstone 3 times, her initial assignment evolving into something more personal. Elena had become mentor, friend, and occasionally stern grandmother figure, pushing Fiona to reconnect with her passion for visual storytelling. Someone's looking for you, Elena said, nodding toward the entrance. Fiona turned to find Marcus Delaney scanning the crowded room, looking oddly out of place in clean jeans and a button-down shirt instead of his usual hiking gear. Marcus? She called, weaving through the crowd. What are you doing here? Your friend Olivia tracked me down, he explained. Said you'd mentioned the celebration in your last call. Thought I'd see how you're doing with civilization. Something warm unfurled in Fiona's chest. Better than expected, she said. Come meet Elena. The evening unfolded in a blend of traditional ceremonies and modern celebration. Elena delivered a speech thanking their allies, specifically mentioning Fiona's photographs that had shown the outside world what we've always known, that this land holds stories worth preserving. Later, as community members prepared to release paper lanterns into the night sky, each carrying messages of hope for the land's future, Fiona and Marcus found a quiet moment on the community center's porch. You seem different, Marcus observed. More ... present. No more hiking backward, Fiona said with a small smile. Though I still have moments. That's normal, he assured her. Healing isn't linear. They watched children running with sparklers, their laughter punctuating the night. Air. I got a job offer, Fiona said suddenly. National Geographic. They saw my Riverstone photo essay. That's incredible, Marcus said. Your dream job, right? It was James's dream for me, she admitted. He always pushed me toward bigger publications, more prestigious assignments. Said my talent was wasted on local stories. And what do you want? The question hung between them, simple yet profound. I want to tell stories that matter, she said finally. Sometimes those are global. Sometimes they're just down the road. Marcus nodded, understanding. You know, in my line of work, I see a lot of people running from something. It's refreshing to see someone running toward something instead. Their conversation was interrupted by Olivia's arrival, breathless with news she'd clearly been holding back. James's investment firm collapsed, she blurted. Fraud investigation. He and that Laura woman lost everything. 6 months ago, this news would have delivered vindictive satisfaction. 3 months ago, bitter comfort. Now, Fiona felt only a distant sadness for the man who'd once been the center of her plans. Are you okay? Olivia asked, watching her closely. Fiona glanced at the paper lantern in her hands, ready to be released with the others. On it, she'd written simply, Thank you for not showing up. I'm more than okay, she replied, and meant it. The beach at sunset glowed amber, transforming ordinary sand into fields of gold. Exactly 1 year after her wedding, that wasn't. Fiona walked barefoot toward the small gathering of friends assembled near the water's edge. Instead of her grandmother's vintage dress, she wore a simple blue sundress that matched the deepening sky. Are you sure about this? Olivia asked, adjusting the small crown of wildflowers on Fiona's hair. It's not too late to call it off. Fiona smiled at the deliberate echo of what many had whispered before her ill-fated wedding. Absolutely certain, she replied. This time, I won't be left at the altar. The self-commitment ceremony, as Fiona had termed it, had begun as a half-joking suggestion during a late-night call with Elena. In my culture, Elena had said, we believe important transitions should be marked. Your old life ended a year ago. Your new one deserves a proper beginning. What had started as symbolic therapy had evolved into something meaningful. 20 people now waited in a semicircle. Olivia and other close friends. Elena, who'd flown in from Riverstone, colleagues from National Geographic, where Fiona now contributed regularly while maintaining her role at focal point, and Marcus, who'd arrived early to help arrange driftwood benches. No white-gowned bride, no nervous groom, no officiating clergy. Just Fiona, her chosen family, and the promises she was finally ready to make to herself. Patricia approached, eyes misty. Your grandmother would have approved, she said, pressing something into Fiona's palm, a delicate silver locket. She wore this the day she decided to leave Spain and start over in America. Said it reminded her that beginnings require courage. The simple ceremony began as the sun touched the horizon. Fiona stood before her friends, the ocean at her back, its steady rhythm underscoring her words. "A year ago today, I thought I was losing everything," she began. "My partner, my plans, my carefully constructed future. What I couldn't see then was that I was also being offered a gift, the chance to rediscover myself separate from anyone else's expectations." She unfolded a small paper where she'd written her vows. "Today, I promise to trust my own compass, even when the path looks different from what others expect. I promise to value my own company and never again settle for relationships that require me to be less than I am. I promise to create rather than simply consume, to stay curious about the world and my place in it." Her voice strengthened as she continued. "I promise to remember that my worth isn't determined by relationship status, career achievements, or others' approval. I promise to honor my needs without apology and to extend the same acceptance to others on their journeys." As she spoke the final words, Olivia stepped forward with a simple silver ring, not for any finger, but suspended on a chain as a pendant. "This isn't about closing myself off," Fiona explained as Olivia fastened it around her neck. "It's about making space for relationships that add to my life rather than define it." As tradition demanded, celebration followed ceremony. They built a bonfire as stars appeared, sharing stories and passing around bottles of wine. Elena taught them a traditional dance. Olivia organized impromptu beach games that left everyone sand-covered and laughing. Later, Fiona and Marcus walked along the shoreline, comfortable in shared silence. "Do you regret not inviting him?" Marcus asked finally. "James, I mean, for closure." Fiona considered this. "My closure doesn't include him," she said. "That's the point. And us?" Marcus asked carefully. "Is there room in your self-commitment for ... possibilities?" Fiona smiled, watching moonlight ripple across waves. "Definitely possibilities, but no rush. I'm enjoying getting to know myself first." They returned to the bonfire where her chosen family waited, their faces illuminated by flames against the darkened beach. 1 year ago, she'd stood before a different gathering, heartbroken and humiliated. Tonight, she moved among friends with the quiet confidence of someone who had fallen apart and reassembled herself stronger at the broken places. The ceremony hadn't been about forgetting the past, but about honoring how it had shaped her present. Not about closing doors, but opening new ones on her own terms, in her own time. As midnight approached, they released paper lanterns into the night sky, not carrying wishes or regrets, but gratitude. For endings that forced new beginnings. For hearts that heal stronger. For the courage to make vows to oneself and keep them.